Oh, I forgot to bring the thing down. Hold on a second, everybody. I'm coming. I'm coming. Here I am. I'm so excited to be talking about this book, this most recently released book by Action Takers Publishing, No Problem Parenting. We have one of our authors today that we're going to be talking about. Communication is one of the most important skills that we as human beings have. And when we're talking about children or relationships with the family and stuff, that's especially when it's most important, I believe, because this is where we set the standard for our children to learn how to communicate with others. So I'm going to be bringing up one of our authors today. We have Mardi Winder-Adams, and she is in this book. Mardi, I'm so excited to have you here because this is your thing. This is your skill of communication. And, how many times has a conversation gone down the wrong path because we didn't know how to communicate properly what we were thinking or feeling, what we wanted, and all these different things. So welcome to the show. So glad to have you today.
Thanks, Linda. It's really great to be here speaking with you.
I want to know, how did you get into this line of work, helping people learn how to communicate?
Well, I started out, believe it or not, in an agriculture degree. But probably the
talking to the plants.
Yeah, actually, it was talking to the animals. And then, well, even before that, I grew up in a family where I think my parents were very kind, very loving. My parents were excellent communicators, both of them. And they just included us. We were encouraged to share our opinions, to talk about what we believed in, to talk about, what needed to happen on one side. But on the other side, my dad was a police officer and he laid down the law. Like when dad spoke, everybody listened. That's paraphrasing that old saying. But so then when I got into the agriculture field, was doing that, worked in an environment literally in a packing plant where I was a junior livestock buyer. So I used to go buy beef cattle for processing. And there was two women that worked in this whole plant. There was myself that worked in the livestock end, and there was the plant manager's secretary, and that was it. All the other 1,500 employees were men. And so, there was a lot of communication challenges in that environment. And this was 35 years ago, 40 years ago, when, it wasn't quite as gender neutral in work environments as it is today. So anyhow, long story short, the more I got working with people, the more I discovered that communication is not natural for people. Left the agriculture degree, got a teaching degree, took my master's, became a behavior consultant. Then I started working with people that were already upset. They didn't like the way the school system was treating their kids. I worked with families where they were having problems communicating with their children. I was a family and divorce mediator, so I was hearing a lot of conflict on that end. And I just realized that communication, even though it's something we all do, and it's a very natural trait, we're not good at it naturally. Some people are, but most people aren't. And I wasn't. So I really started looking at how can I learn to communicate in difficult situations more effectively. And so that's really what got me really excited about it, because when people can communicate, they can solve any problem. When problems can't be solved, it's because there's no way to communicate those deep values, those deep issues that are causing that problem to continue on being what it is.
Wow, that is like you just opened up a huge can of worms, and it reminded me of this one. I'm going to just share one small instance that's a great example of what you were just sharing there. Is I was sitting at my desk and I was working, and my husband and I have an agreement that, when I'm working, that if he's talking to me, I probably won't hear what he's saying, but I'll say, yeah. I'll actively unlisten. I guess is what I'm doing. So I was sitting here working, and he was walking by, and he said something, and I did hear him that time, but I heard him not the way he meant it. And so what I heard, what I don't remember the words, but what I heard made me like, oh, how dare him? In my mind, I'm thinking, how dare him say something like that? Insensitive and whatever I was going through my head. And then I had an awareness moment. Linda, ding, ding, ding. He probably didn't mean that. So I got up and I walked over to him because I knew I needed to resolve it. You know, you're a mediator, and so you totally get this resolution thing, right? I had to resolve it right then and there. And so I walked over and I said, you know, when you just said XYZ, you didn't mean this, did you? And he goes, heck no. I mean, that never even crossed my mind. So what had happened was I was able to, you know, diffuse a situation that I was having, he wasn't even having. And so thanks for reminding me of that situation. I would love for you to, you know, talk about those types of situations. How do we tap? I was aware. I had an awareness moment. It's not like I'm aware all the time, but I had an awareness moment. And how do we move into that place where we can be aware that to have a conversation, to communicate with the other party?
Right. And you know, Linda, that's a really perfect example. And it's interesting. I had a chance to work with another mediator. Her name is also Linda Smith. And one of her big statements is the biggest source of conflict is misread minds. And I really think that's the truth. We make assumptions. We know what they're trying to say, and they should know what we mean when we speak. And if we can just get out of that mindset and become curious about, like you know, when you heard that your husband say that, and you thought, I don't really think that's probably what he meant. If we just use that strategy more often and went to people and said, you know, what I heard you say was this. Can you tell me more about that? Or what did you mean by that? Or what was this in reference to? Rather than just going off and just assuming that what we thought was right is, you know, what actually happened, I think communication would go a lot smoother. But that's not the way our human brain is wired. We hear something and we react to it, we respond to it. And it's a visceral, emotional body response that, you know, thoughts, behaviors, and feelings all come together. And if it's something that triggers us, then lots of times we go off, and then we're already, you know, anticipating the worst and putting all the bad thoughts and bad energy and bad feelings about what they've said. We're putting it right out there in our conversations, and people get defensive. And then when people get defensive, we say, I was right. You're trying to hide something, or you're trying to do something. And it's this cycle. And if you're a third party standing in the room, you can watch this. You don't even have to know the people. You can pick it out when those kind of things are happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I know there was something that you said when I interviewed you about the other book you're in with us, you know, Action Takers Who Get Shit Done. You want to talk about that? You said the first thing, the second thing, the third thing. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah. And every time that we step up one more increment, we kind of overdo things. And I hope I'm thinking about the same thing that you are,
Was the
Linda.
first thing? Don't say the first thing you're thinking, or the second thing. Say the third thing.
Yeah, that's that. Well, so if you want to do that, really stop and think about it. Is this the first thought that comes to your mind? Is this accurate? Is this something I'm thinking of? Is this something that you're thinking of? Or that I'm perceiving that you're thinking. The second thing we're probably going to think of is they've got ulterior motives. So do we need to act on that, or do we not need to act on that? And the third thing is hopefully that question, I'm wondering what you meant by that. And just letting them explain a little bit more about what they're doing, or what they're thinking, or what they're going to do, or what they're asking you to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So good. I think it's important doing that, you know, instead of being reactionary. You know, this gives us an opportunity to be a little bit more mindful about what we say, because we can control what we say. I know it's hard sometimes. We want to just say it, but it's something that we can control. And then getting an understanding of what the other person is thinking, or what they really meant by something, that is going to help with those conversations. And so we're talking to Mardi Winder-Adams, you know, in the book, No Problem Parenting. Hold on, I'm bringing it up on the screen here. No Problem Parenting. This book is filled with resources and stories that are going to create confidence and connection. And, you know, this is related to, you know, families. And so, Mardi, what was it about this book that made you decide to join it?
Well, first of all, Jackie Finneman, who's the author, the yeah, the author, the person who put us all together. She is a phenomenal individual. I followed her podcast for quite a while. She's been on mine, I've been on hers, and I just really, she is so heart centered about helping families. So that really appealed to me, and I have seen the struggle of families having problems with communication, and it's not just between mom and dad, or mom and dad, whatever the family dynamic looks like. It can also be between like the parents and the kids. And conversation in families, I think, is changing a lot. I think technology, not always for the better, where a lot of conversation, a lot of communication that used to be done face to face now is done, via text or via messenger, or WhatsApp little recordings. And that's the communication skill, that ability to be present, to be an active listener, not an unactive listener, as we were talking about. Those kind of things. I think that is a skill that's being lost, and I don't think it's being really taught anywhere. But it's things that we can all learn to do on our own. You don't need to take a course. You don't need to necessarily, go to some degree program. What you really need to do is look at, are you able to get your message across? And is the person able to receive your message in the way that you're giving it? And I think both of those things need to occur for effective communication in a family.
Yeah. Oh, so true. So true. And we have to really understand that we need help. I think that's one of the things that's hard for us to do as human beings. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about your chapter. Gosh, I can't believe we're almost done with time. This is just crazy. Time flies when you're having fun. But it's 5 steps, but don't tell us all 5 because we don't want to give away the whole book. The 5 steps to lower conflict in family communication. Can you give us one of those 5 steps?
I think the most important thing, and I think something that both parents and kids need to know, is if you're going to go into a conversation where you think that somebody is not necessarily going to be really happy with the information you're sharing, you really need to think about how you want to structure that discussion, and you need to know what you want to say. And sometimes we try to soften our language and we use ambiguous terms. And I think in the book, one of the things I said was, if you want to tell the kids they need to clean the room, don't go in and say, gosh, it would be really nice if the house looked a little better when I got home, if your mom coming home or dad coming home and expecting things clean. But to really be specific, it would be, I'm expecting when I come home that, the clothes are picked up off the floor, or the dishes are in the dishwasher, or whatever it may be. Be really clear and specific, and then ask the kids, how do you feel about that? What are your ideas on that? And so it's not a demand, it's a true conversation where you're inviting people to share their ideas, and you're looking for a way to make whatever the request is work for both sides.
Yeah, I think what I find myself doing oftentimes is moving. See, I grew up in a very narcissistic, abusive, volatile, alcoholic household. And so I had a lot of those same tendencies. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I had a lot of the same, like verbally abusive, narcissistic. And every once in a while, I'll be typing out an email and I look at it and say, that is a narcissistic statement. And so, but I'm aware, again, it's that awareness, having that awareness that we need to make a shift if we want to. It's our choice, of course, but having that awareness is really important. And so I'm going to share with you a situation that happened. And again, it's with my husband again. And in my business at the beginning, the first 5 years, I wasn't doing very well. And it got to the point where I had charged up so many credit cards that I had to file bankruptcy in my business. And so, Marty, like you mentioned earlier about, having like about a year and a half or so, a lot of times when we're thinking of divorce, a lot of times women, it takes a year and a half to 2 years for them to actually make that decision to do it. Well, while I was going through this financial time in my business, I wasn't telling my husband because I was ashamed. I was ashamed of where I had gotten. I was ashamed that if I told him that he might want to leave me, I was like, I had all this shame around it. And then one day I kind of weighed the two things. I said, I'm either going to tell him the truth or I'm going to divorce him. Like I had an irrational thought going through my head. Now I had
Right.
been with him for 28 years by that time, 28 or 29 years. And so I finally decided, okay, I'm going to tell him, I'm going to risk divorce. And so I had a plan, like you mentioned, having basically like a plan of what are you going to say? And so I sat down with him, and now I'm a Christian, but I'm not like they say, like Bible thumper and all this stuff, right? And so I said, I need to talk to you about something. And so we sat down, and the very first thing I did is I brought the Bible out. So that should have been a clue right there, because I've never done that before. I brought the Bible out and I put it on the table, and I said, before we start, let us pray. I never did that before either. So I said, Lord, please allow the words that come out of my mouth land in his ears the way I intend them. And that right there set him up for like, okay, I'm listening.
Right.
So it was interesting. Just by that one little thing, when I said it, I said, I had to file bankruptcy in my business. And he said, oh my God, that's all?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to divorce me.
Wow.
I thought you were having an affair and we're going. My shame for what I wanted to share with him was so strong that my behavior around him was one that he was interpreting as I was having an affair.
Right. What a powerful
So,
story, though.
yeah. And we're still together. We've been together for 34 years, and our marriage is stronger today than it was leading up to that. And I told him, I said, I won't hide anything from you anymore. And I haven't, because that shame that I felt was worse than telling him the truth.
And I think a lot of times we put these parameters around, or these fences that we think are, if we cross them, that's the line in the sand. And if we go past that, then there's no coming back. And I think that if we have those conversations earlier and we communicate openly, I think most people, if there's a solid relationship foundation, whether it's your kids, whether it's your parents, sometimes people are dealing with challenges with their own parents. What do they call us? The sandwich generation, where we're looking after our parents and our kids at the same time. And so, I really think that speaking these things out really helps strengthen a family. Yeah, it doesn't they're not pleasant conversations. They can be extremely difficult. People are dealing with addiction in their family, or people are dealing with financial problems or health issues, or whatever it may be. But if you don't get it out there, if you can't talk about it, you can't ask for help, you can't get solutions, you can't have people that are going to walk alongside you and say, we're here to support you, if they don't even know what you're going through. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, like I said, the shame that I carried around was way worse than just telling the truth. And, I had held on to that for 6 or 7 months, solid for 6 or 7 months. And so how many things are we not allowing ourselves to speak out? When I wrote my book recently, Do It Because You're Scared, a lot of that stems from that one scenario right there, because I was scared to tell him, and the results that I got on the other side were way better, way better. Yeah. Like, we're still together and we're stronger than ever before. And so with that said, oh my gosh, we have gone over time, and I want to make sure that I respect your time, as well as, we want people to go out and buy the book. So get your copy of the book, No Problem Parenting. And you can get a copy at actiontakerspublishing.com/NPP for No Problem Parenting. As well, over there, we have a lot of free gifts from our authors. So please go cash in on those free gifts. Get your copy of the book today. And so, Mardi, what is one thing that you would like the readers to take away from reading this book?
Just that there is no problem in parenting that you are facing completely alone. And there's lots of resources out there. There are lots of great coaches, support people, therapists. Reach out and get help, because they're out there, and there's no problem with asking for help.
There's no problem with asking for help. That's right. Thank you so much, Mardi, for being here. I truly appreciate you. Always a pleasure. And I feel like I could talk to you for another 5 or 6 hours, and we might have to do that on our own time.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Again, go to actiontakerspublishing.com/NPP. Get your copy of No Problem Parenting today. And thanks for being here.
one of the things that I've personally found from my experience of working with Action Tag Publishing is that I've walked away with more friends than I had before, because of the relationship that you build with the authors while working in an anthology. I think it's an amazing project to be able to get published. It's a fantastic way to get published the first time, and I've almost seen people who get hooked on doing anthologies, because once that bug is bitten, you feel like you can release more and more and more and more stories, and Linda's got a bunch of titles that I think resonates with a lot of us who live in the real world.